Tony D and Little Joan in the background, and this is my review of the Terminal List. The Screenwriters take, smash like, and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books. The links are in the description. Comedy Horror in South Jersey. It's The Pineys, books 1 through 9, available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. I have more book signings. Yes, I just added a book signing today. On Saturday, I'll be at Thunder Road Books in Spring Lake, and then on Monday, the 5th, I will be at the Long Beach Island LBI Book Swap. I've been trying to set that one up for a while. Both signings start at 11 a.m., so come out to the Monday book signing, especially if you're on vacation in LBI, New Jersey. That's where Bloody John Bacon committed the Long Beach Island Massacre. That's in one of my books. Anyway, so the Terminal List. All right, so first I'll give you the non-spoiler review, and then we'll break it down, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of this. I don't know if you saw it. It's an 8-episode miniseries running on Amazon. And the premise is Chris Pratt is the only survivor of a Navy SEAL unit that went in on this mission, and everybody died, except him. And now he begins to suspect they were betrayed, and he is trying to figure out who betrayed them, and while getting revenge for his fallen comrades and other people. I don't want to give too much away because it's based on a book, and it accelerates pretty high. Now, there are positives, but there are a little bit of a negative. I just watched the last episode last night, and I gotta say, I found it a little unrealistic, however, ironic. Because it starts very grounded in reality. I mean, it's super grounded in reality, and then very slowly over the 8 episodes, it really ratchets up until the point at which you go, could he really escape this? You know what I mean? But he is a Navy SEAL, and I gotta say, Chris Pratt, his acting, his range is really good in this movie. He goes to a lot of new places. There's a lot of flashbacks to more happier times for him that they're pretty good, but I think they were a little too much. I mean, it's different when you take a book and turn it into a mini series as opposed to a movie. This probably would have been too much for a movie. You would have had to have jettisoned a lot of characters. I don't know if they added characters for this, but yeah, it feels in the beginning like there are a lot of characters, but I think part of the problem, and I'm kind of nitpicking, is there's not enough characters. There's really not enough, because when you have a movie that's basically a revenge, miniseries that's about revenge, you want some characters around that he's not getting revenge on. You know what I mean? Like some red herrings in the mix, and there's really the fault of the story is there's not really a good red herring here. There's not a big twist. It's pretty much straightforward. I mean, they could have called this thing Chris Pratt Kills Everybody. But it is good. I did really enjoy the action. I like the earlier episodes better than I like the ending, but the ending's pretty good. Pretty good. And again, the acting's really on point, especially even with Chris Pratt. There is a lot of detail here, which is really good. It does go into detail with the character and his home life, and there's a lot of flashbacks that are good. But it's almost a little too much, I would say. That being said, I think it's a good miniseries to watch. I'm recommending it. I'm not the good far outweighs the bad. If I had to give you a 8 out of or a 10 out of 1 out of 10 or rating out of 10, I would give it about an 8. I think it's solid. I think it could have been better, but pretty solid. Pretty solid. And Pratt is just, to me, Pratt's a joy to watch. He's got a lot of charisma. And in this he shows more range, and there's a lot of pragmatism in his performance, and in the roles he picks, and I like that. There's a lot of that missing now, I think, in Hollywood. There's not a lot of pragmatic scenes where you see things that, yeah, this had to happen. But this is very much, for the most part, steeped in that. All right, so that concludes my non-spoiler review. So we're going to get into the actual plot and the nitty-gritty here. So if you want to see this thing, it's running on Amazon. It's good. I recommend. Go see it and then come back and watch the rest here. Okay, let's change the visual up here. So you got 8 episodes, and the arc is he comes home, after this terrible mission, and you see the mission too, which to some extent, I don't even know if you needed to see that mission, but he comes home, the mission went bad, he's the only survivor, essentially, and, well, he's not the only survivor of the mission, because one of his guys quickly kills himself, and Pratt begins to get suspicious of how his friend died. He's suffering headaches, and the eventual reveal after a couple episodes is they used this drug. They tested a drug that was giving all the SEALs brain tumors, and then they sent them on this mission to kill them all. And it's about the people who sent them on the mission who were benefiting from all the pharmaceutical companies, right? So it's him unraveling this story with the help of a journalist and his friends who are established in the best one, I thought, of the friends who was established later in the series is the pilot character. I thought she was great. I liked how they introduce her in a flashback, and then he starts working with her. That's sort of later. And but again, I think the problem with this miniseries is, again, it should have been called Chris Pratt Kills Everybody, because he kills just about everybody in the series, or everybody in the series dies, right? And huge spoilers in this. Keep in mind, I'm telling you the spoilers. The fact, the end, he ends up killing not only the Secretary of Defense, but his best buddy who helps him the whole way. I mean, that's a lot of twists and turns. I think that's too many. And that Chris Pratt, ironically, and I think it's kind of ironic that he survives. He's dying from brain cancer, and literally the entire cast around him dies except for maybe the reporter. And who else survives? I guess the pilot. But just about everybody else dies. I mean, all the bad guys die. He kills. The body count in this thing is huge, right? Because he kills all the security guys. He manages to do explosions that don't kill people, which again is, I mean, that was towards the end when he blows up the side of the hill and then saves the woman's life and didn't manage to kill anybody else. Again, kind of unrealistic. When you look at the beginning, however, it's so grounded in reality. You feel like when Chris Pratt kills the FBI agent and does all the things to get at him, that, yeah, he can do this. He's a Navy SEAL. He's been trained to do this. It feels like, yeah, 100%. When he tries to set off an IED to kill the big, what's the name? The guy from who's doing the stock deal. Steve Horn is his character's name. It feels a bit unrealistic, and they set up Steve Horn as this, soldier guy who's also training to be a soldier in his spare time. And like he doesn't fight him as a soldier. He blows him up and then shoots him, right? So that was a bit, I felt the death of Steve Horn was a bit surprising and anticlimactic. Now, you could argue that's more realistic, and up to that point, it was pretty realistic. But I think the most unrealistic thing was the way he escapes, with the whole hill blowing up, and him saving the girl and still being able to escape. I think that was pretty unrealistic. On top of the fact he was shot and all these things, but he is a Navy SEAL. They show you some of the training montage. There's a lot of jumping back and forth in time. He has very convenient, episodes with his brain tumors and everything. So I don't know if they're setting this up for a sequel. Kind of feels like they are. I don't know what the sequel would be. I think any kind of sequel wouldn't be as personal as this one, because man, he kills everybody. When he goes after the Secretary of Defense and then she just kills herself, it's like that was, to me, appropriate, right? It was like appropriate, like she would kill herself because her character didn't really want, to some extent, believed she was doing good. Whereas Steve Horn was just an a-hole and deserved to be popped right on the street there. So, I enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed his list. They give him the, that list of people that he's going to get revenge on, and they give him a reason to want revenge. I mean, they kill his wife and daughter, right? That's reason enough. I mean, I didn't expect them to kill off the daughter. I thought that was like, oh my God. But that's, unfortunately, the reality of cartel people, and he's just absolutely brutal when he goes after him, right? The whole thing with the guts where he makes him walk, pulling out his own entrails. Oof. Oofa, what a scene. That was a little too much. That was almost a little too much. I thought about just ending it right there. That was crazy. But you could understand it. And that's why I liked his range. He was going to get revenge. And he's got nothing to live for, really. He's got absolutely nothing to live for in all these skills. So, the only guy I thought, his buddy, who turns out to be in on it, it's like, why did he help him all that time? Why did he just continually help Chris Pratt when he knew the whole time, and then he knew he'd get caught? He knew eventually Chris Pratt would figure it out. And that seemed to be a twist I didn't need. I didn't really need that twist. It was a bit unrealistic too, that he would go through all this trouble knowing he was essentially poisoning his own guys. Yeah, he didn't know everything about it, but I mean, it seemed like such a major betrayal. But I guess I could see that, he'd be right in that window where he did betray him, and then he feels so bad he's willing to go along with anything to help Chris Pratt. I mean, at that point, you might as well have told him. At some point, you might as well have just told him, hey, at the end. I mean, what did he really think? What was the game plan of this guy? Is my real question, right? So you betray all your friends with this drug to make millions of dollars, because I don't know, they never quite explain who he is. He's like, I guess he's in the CIA for some reason, or a CIA asset, and that's why he's got all this money and power and fame, or whatever. Not fame, but and he's able to help Chris Pratt lay out his revenge, and nobody ever seems to find him. So yeah, it felt a little too much. I mean, he literally kills everybody in the movie, right? So you got all the admirals he meets with, they all die. He dies. The Secretary of Defense dies. The one FBI guy dies who was working for Steve Horn. Steve Horn dies. He doesn't kill him, but the guy in charge of the charge of the drug dies. Everybody but the reporter and the pilot, basically. His kids, his wife and daughter die. I mean, the only people and the other only people who didn't die were her parents and his parents. I guess it was his parents or friends. I don't know who the Mexican parents were. I thought it was the parents of the daughter, and until later I saw the scene with the actual parents of the daughter. But I did love that scene. That was one of my favorite scenes in this whole thing. There's a scene where Chris Pratt is talking to the parents of his wife, and he's explaining to him why he needs to disappear and that people are going to come around asking about me. And you could see the mother's not on board with whatever he's talking about, and she's kind of mad. And then he explains that he might have to take the law into his own hands to get at the people who did this to her daughter. And she just says, "Do what you have to do." Like, right like that. Oh yeah, she's on board with this revenge. And that was a great scene, I felt. And it, again, realistic, right? You could totally see that grandmother and mother being like, yeah, kill them. So it's a bit dark. I mean, the movie, or the miniseries, is a bit dark. It doesn't really end on a hopeful note either. And it sort of just ends with like, well, that's the last murder. Nobody left to kill for Chris Pratt. I guess he's on sailing the oceans until his brain tumor kills him, or he finds some more people to murder. So I could see a sequel, but it would be, to me, it would be really hard for them to make it as personal as this. I think the story's over. But, you know, I do like Pratt in a role. I like him in this kind of role. I would love to see him in something lighter and funnier than this, because he's got such great comic timing. You know, I'd really like to see him in a fun buddy movie or revenge movie or cop movie or something like that, where he gets to say one-liners and be a little closer to what was his character, Andy on Parks and Rec, because he was so good on that show. And I would love to see him reunited with Aubrey Plaza in a movie. That would be great. Him and Aubrey Plaza teaming up to do something. She's the love interest, and he's the wacky guy who could shoot the guns. So it's, I mean, he's a good action star, right? He's been in Zero Dark 30, and he's been in, I think that he was in that, right? Zero Dark 30 and the Alien movie, which wasn't as good. This was better than that. Better than the Alien movie, I'll say. Definitely. By far. So you got your first act. You can't really break it up into acts. It's part of the problem with miniseries. Essentially a 8-hour movie. But the first act is all the setup, right? You know, the mission goes haywire, which we kind of almost didn't need to see. He comes home. His buddy kills himself. He's starting to suspect he's been betrayed. He starts to look into it more. You know, they attempt to kill him and finish him off, and now he knows something's up. Does he kill the federal guy? I forget if he kills the FBI guy first or after they kill his wife and kid. But then at some point they kill his wife and kid, and that is it, man. That is it. He's hell-bent on revenge. He's got brain tumors, and his wife and kid are dead. Just, that is heavy. So now he's bent on revenge. So the whole second act is revenge. So first up, you're going after the cartel guys who killed his wife and kids. But then as the whole things start to unravel, you got all these guys connected to the drugs. That's why he's going to die. That's why all his friends are dead. That's why they were killed him. And then they start going after the pharmaceutical guys. And then eventually the guys who sent him on the mission to die. And he had his buddy had a good line towards the end, I thought, where it was like, well, I thought it was better that you'd all die with your boots on than, you know, in a fight than die in some hospital bed. Which, he was one of them, so I could see that line kind of working, although it's still kind of rough. You know, it's like you were in on this whole deal. So, um, I kind of liked the character of the Secretary of Defense because she really tried to defend herself all the way up until the end. And I did like that she killed herself because I think that was appropriate for her character. Like, she argued and argued and argued that what she had done was the right thing, and then basically, like, realizes, nope, I screwed up, and, like, this is the only way out, and he's going to kill me anyway. The journalist was a little unrealistic, I'll say, because she pursued this story to ridiculous ends, Um, and I feel like those guys just don't exist anymore. You know, for journalists, I would really like. I mean, that's part of the reason I co-wrote Wokistan, a novel, is I really wanted to stick it to the media types and just how awful they are now. Same thing with Hollywoke, but more so with Wokistan, just how friggin' useless and how the media guys make it worse. It would have been interesting to see a journalist like that Chris Pratt kind of uses, but then the guy completely betrays him and tries to wreck him. The action was all good. What else was good about this? The rest of the cast was good. I don't mean to just harp on Pratt. Everybody seemed to be rock solid. The military guys. I like the scene where he kills the drill instructor. That's a good scene. The he just goes through hell. Just goes through absolute hell. And I do think it's ironic that he lives at the end. At first, I wanted that ending. I think when you watch this, if you watched it, hopefully you already did before you got to the spoilers. But I think when you watch this and Chris Pratt doesn't die, you realize that what an ironic ending that is, right? Because it's like he had the brain tumors. He was constantly risking his life. And, he's the only guy that doesn't die, basically, other than the cop or the FBI guy. He was okay as a character. You kind of knew he was going to let Chris Pratt go at the end. But they seemed to focus. The focus got weird towards the end, too, and I think this is the result of trying to turn a book into a miniseries. Like, I really wasn't all that interested in the FBI guy. It was good they established him well enough so when he does let Chris Pratt go, you can go, yeah, I could see him doing that. Chris Pratt just drops the gun and walks away and swims away with yet another bullet wound. That was kind of another unrealistic part. He had already been shot in the arm, and I don't think he had time to recover, after the whole escaping the park thing. And then, almost immediately he goes after the Secretary of Defense. And then, you got to think, like, well, why doesn't he wait? Why doesn't he wait a little bit to let her guard down? Or why doesn't the movie, like, say 6 months later? You know what I mean? That's kind of what I would have done to slow it down. Maybe space these things out further. But I guess he was under the gun a little bit because the reporter was getting closer and closer. I don't know. I think maybe they could have reworked that where, like, the reporter puts out a thing and the Secretary of Defense is under fire, but, doesn't have to resign quite yet. Maybe she's fighting it in court, and then she has the big meeting with the reporter, and comes to her house, of course, so the reporter can be there at the end. Yeah, that was kind of interesting too. Chris Pratt fights his way all the way in, just as the reporter's about to be horribly murdered. Right? What an expose that would be if a reporter like that existed. Right? But yeah, by a miracle, like, none of the FBI guys are shot. None of the army guys who help the FBI towards the end. None of them are hurt or shot. It's only the only evil guys who are horribly, brutally murdered are the private contractors from Talon, you'll notice. Like when Chris Pratt orders the guy to open the door and then just shoots him. Just open the panic room, and then he's totally surrendered, and then he just kills him. It's like that was brutal. But I gotta admit, it's realistic. How's he gonna let him live, right? How's he gonna knock him out and let him live? He sees him as the enemy because he was part of the, you're protecting these people, and so down he goes. That was very convenient too, right? It's like, if that guy hadn't lived, if Chris Pratt didn't have that moment where, I'm going to surrender. Every guy up until now didn't surrender. Chris Pratt is just picking them off one by one, his buddy. But like the guy right at the door who knows the combination to get into the panic room, he surrenders just long enough to punch in the code, and then Chris Pratt kills him. So that was a bit convenient. But I'm nitpicking. Overall, it's a very enjoyable revenge thing, and the list is great. On the back of his daughter's drawing, it's so dramatic, right? I mean, this is the kind of thing you'd see in, like, I don't know, The Punisher. If they kicked up The Punisher a notch, Chris Pratt could play The Punisher, right? I mean, The Punisher, was he a Navy SEAL, or he was like Special Ops, right? Frank Castle. He doesn't look like Frank Castle, but they could, I don't know, shave his beard, dye his hair, maybe. Maybe he'd be a good Frank Castle. I mean, he's in shape for it, right? So, overall, the Terminal List, like I said, it's an 8 out of 10. Pretty good. Pretty good. I'm nitpicking. I had a good time watching it. I wanted to watch it from beginning to end. Again, Chris Pratt kills everybody. It's what you want from a movie, right? You want to see him get revenge on all these people who screwed over the government. I was trying to think in my head who the last guy was, and I really didn't want it to be his friend. I wanted it to be like the president of the United States, and then Chris Pratt just can't kill him, and they go off, and maybe someday they'll come back and kill the president of the United States or something, but I guess they can't do that. That would be too much, right? It would be too much for a book. But you could see, like, the corruption going that high, right? But it is what it is. Again, good series. I don't know why people picked on it other than it's Chris Pratt, But I think the only thing it lacked was maybe a couple other name actors. But other than that, I thought the scripts were solid, seemed to know what they were talking about. I think Razorfist said you'll get sick of hearing the word brother all the time. I didn't find it, that part of it, annoying, but the dialogue was good. It was pretty good. Just a little unrealistic towards the end. So would I see a sequel? Yeah, I would see it. I don't think it would be as good as this one. I think it would be the law of diminishing returns, but I think it could potentially do a sequel with Chris Pratt. I would rather see it shorter. I think you could have made this 6 episodes rather than 8, and it would have been tighter. But beyond that, the Terminal List, not bad. Not a bad little mini series. Maybe you just do a different one with a different character who's similar, right? I don't know if this guy wrote more of these with this character. It is based on a book, but it's not bad. Little gross, little dark, but not bad. I give it an upvote. And that's it for me, Tony D, and Little Joan. Check us out on Odysee, Bitchute, and Rumble for our more bass takes. We got bass takes galore on Odysee, Bitchute, and Rumble, so don't miss them. I will be at Thunder Road Books this Saturday at 11, and then LBI Book Swap on Monday the 5th. We'll see you in the next one.